Obviously, as an industry perspective, very strong growth this year, but someone with your years of experience, how are you seeing the market play out?
Well, you know, I can't help but think back to the end of 2008 when you know, we had the perfect storm of Spain coming off and the global recession, and everybody said, you know, we're going to have a down market this year, and it'd be the first time in recent memory, I think actually in the history of PV, that would happen, and it didn't. You know, we came out of the year with substantial growth, and the industry has a history of that. Every year it grows, so it's almost monotonous in that sense. We just live in a almost constant 40% growth rate environment, and we've adjusted to that, and the industry's, you know, thereby expanding 30-fold per decade or something. So it's been wonderful. When we look, so we look forward with mixed thoughts. I mean, you know, we had been worried about 2011 earlier, and it's shaping up, as far as we can tell, to be actually quite exciting. Now, maybe the second half, I don't know. But in any case, the big downturn just keeps being pushed out, you know, and I hope it's pushed out forever, quite frankly, but you never know. So we have to be aware of that, and certainly a little conservative in our planning.
I think there's two sides then to this. One, you could argue that we're seeing more countries adopt one form or another of a feed-in tariff or similar system, but also we're starting to see price declines, significant price declines across the value chain, which makes solar that much more competitive.
Yeah, and the price declines have been a very important part of this, and frankly, we're a long time coming, as you know, because of the poly shortage, and we got, I think, in a little bit of a tenuous situation with the policymakers in that we have been promising, you know, that growth would bring the cost down, and in fact it didn't, and it was getting a little bit strained there. So it's good to see that happen. But I think one of the surprises perhaps is we all could see the price decline coming. What we couldn't see is how fast the market could respond to that. You know, how fast the dealer channels could get set up and that sort of thing. And I think everyone was pleasantly surprised how quickly the industry is able to react to changes, rapid fluctuations in demand, as for example happened in Spain. We ramped up very rapidly in Spain, and we ramped down very rapidly in Spain and moved elsewhere, and we see the whole world bubbling up with similar kinds of activities. So I'm encouraged, basically.
Well, one of the areas that obviously Europe remains a very important part of the market, but something that SunPower has been able to do perhaps more successfully than other conventional crystalline module suppliers is in the large-scale utility market. How do you see the utility market playing out, both in Europe and places like America, where we might finally see some major projects finally come into fruition?
Well, we certainly hope that both the utility and the distributed rooftop type markets grow together, because we need both. You know, we cannot reach the ultimate goal of phasing out, you know, fossil fuel-based fuels if we're only putting PV on people's houses. So we need both, and I think the reason that SunPower has been successful in the ground-mounted systems is an interesting one. We had a long history through our PowerLight relationship of using trackers, and trackers, as you know, give you another 25 or 30% boost in annual energy. So it's very difficult to compare apples and apples on module price basis and relate that immediately to what it would do in a power plant. One, a fixed tilt power plant that might use a lower cost, lower efficiency thin film, and the other a tracking power plant. But the way it works out is that if you have high enough efficiency so that you can afford to pay for the tracker, then you can compete very nicely with a much lower cost module on a fixed tilt, which is too low of an efficiency to warrant tracking. So we see this sort of bifurcation of the market. You know, it's an interesting race to see which one, you know, really has the long-term legs. But it's a very good competition. It's not like you know, we're able to obviously be successful in that market.
Well, another area that you've been successful in, but it seems to some of us observing SunPower, it's taken longer than you thought, and that's markets like Italy. The company was, you know, obviously touting the potential growth only a few years ago of Italy, but it's only in recent times that we've seen, you know, much more, you know, announcements from SunPower on this.
Right.
Why is that?
Well, in Italy, we're doing basically large power plants, and they have a very long development cycle from, you know, getting access to the land, transmission, customers, permits, all of that sort of thing is a very time-consuming and specialized kind of activity, if you will, and it just takes time. It's now starting to come to fruition, fortunately, and over the next year, very much more so, as I'm sure you'll see.
Is there also another aspect there that the feed-in tariff is not attractive to ultra-big utility scale projects? We're talking 20, 30 megawatts, but rather the smaller scale 1 to 5 megawatt type plants in Italy, and your higher efficiency cells and your tracker technology kind of counteracts the balance of then the lower. I didn't know whether that has...
No, I mean, you can combine systems. So, you know, in Spain, for example, they were 100 kilowatt systems, right? Even though there were 20 megawatts. So, no, I don't.
So they feel then that there's more combined technology applications for solar plants than just simply one type of technology used per plant. Okay. Now, obviously, you're seeing a lot of demand. I believe you're sold out capacity-wise this year. Can you sort of give us an idea about, you know, what the manufacturing plans are and how you plan to remain competitive against some of the Asian players?
As you know, we'll be ramping up our Malaysia factory in the late this year, and are going to basically, it's pedal to the metal on bringing that facility up, just adding production lines, so that it'll take several years to build it out totally. But so we've been through a period now where our module availability has been somewhat limited because we built out the first two factories in the Philippines, and they're operating full speed, and we'll start seeing next year significant contributions from the Malaysia fab.
And what kind of cell efficiencies are you hoping to achieve at high volume production levels in the Malaysian fab?
Well, the Malaysia fab will start out with very similar to our generation 2 type cells, 22, 23% cells. And over time we'll be phasing in new platforms as they ramp up.
Now, obviously, a lot of companies have been concerned, mainstream cell producers, of going to sort of more aggressive technologies and then finding that the cost reductions aren't there. How are you tackling that side of it?
Well, we were fortunate in that we started with a difficult technology. And so I think actually one of our advantages was that we had to make it work. When we started our first factory on the back junction cell, that's all we had, and it either worked or we were done. So there was a tremendous corporate focus on getting that going. We also had the advantage, the critical advantage of Cypress Semiconductor, which at that time owned SunPower and put a tremendous amount of not only well-needed capital, but expertise in manufacturing. So most of our manufacturing people come out of the semiconductor industry, and they're used to very complicated. To them, our solar cell process is embarrassingly simple, you know. we have 3 masking layers to make the cell like any cell, and they have 27 or something in the latest generation of CMOS devices. So, and that industry had become very competitive globally and had developed incredibly sophisticated systems for bringing up new technologies. We imported their entire product development methodology and system lock, stock, and barrel into SunPower, and that really helped us go. Although it's been, we frankly expected more competition by this point, and I think the fact that we have 25 years of experience in high efficiency cells is certainly has been beneficial, and perhaps it's turned out to be harder than many people thought to make a more complex kind of cell.
One final question for you, Dick. I'm assuming that with the record cell efficiencies that SunPower is very well known for, it hasn't been known for significant high megawatt capacity. That's all going to change, very quickly with the Fab 2 and the JV there. Do you feel that this gives you more confidence at remaining very competitive against, even thin film technology?
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, our whole focus at this point is on bringing costs down, and one aspect of that is scale, and just higher purchasing power and more amortization of overhead and that sort of thing, and that's important. But we also are excited about that opportunity in the sense of bringing the next level of automation and high volume manufacturing understanding, cost control understanding, and that sort of thing. So we see, actually, almost paradoxically, more opportunities for cost reduction than you might think, because we have been more sort of semiconductor oriented, and we're becoming much more high volume oriented. So at the end of the day, we're absolutely convinced that if you get 40% more energy out of the wafer, your cost should be lower, okay? Even if your process is a little more complex. And our job is to be sure we're on that treadmill and keeping those costs coming down.